Well, today's session was a strange one. I mean, it started off at the top of the mountaintop in many ways, and I slowly slid down it. And not even necessarily in a bad way, because the fact that it started off with such a high was a big win. It was a really, really, really big win. I didn't expect myself to get as many reps on 100 kilo bench as I did. I managed 11, and it was my first set to failure in this program. So I was a little bit anxious for it. I was very curious to see what I had in the locker. Last time, the most I'd ever taken 100 kilos for was 7 reps. And that was after what was a 120 PR at the time. So that was good. Slowly but surely fizzled out. And I didn't do half as much work as I've been doing on these upper days. Partly just because I felt like my body just shut down. And not literally, but I was getting a few signs to say like, yo, chill out, in particular from my shoulder. And now, out of those 11 reps, there were a few that, if I'm being completely honest, were a little bit grindy. But my focus was just the reps. I really don't care. I'm more than happy with that. Then moved on to rows, and the rows were nice. Overhead press, that was good as well, to be fair. And then just hit a brick wall, the pull-ups, but we move. I was left in a I found myself left in somewhat of a pool of gratitude for reasons that would be quite unexpected. And that's because I don't believe I would have got that 11 reps if, quite frankly, I wasn't as angry as I was going into that set. And I say a pool of gratitude because I'm grateful to the person who put me in that aggressive state after a slight disagreement on how things are managed in a public gym. And it led me to ponder both the subject at hand and the fact that not only was I grateful for my fire being lit going into that set, but I was grateful for being able to practice some new teachings. The book that I'm reading right now, believe it or not, my first time reading it, it's one of the most famous philosophy books out there, is Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. And it was very interesting to experience him in some ways sitting on my shoulder and whispering sweet, calming nothings in my ear, whilst me, my ego, on my other shoulder was boiling up, so to speak. And I had one thing in particular ringing in my head that I got from the book, because I am by no means in a position to speak on this book yet. And that is that it's very simple, but nothing on the outside can affect you inside unless you allow it. And that was the one thing that kind of rang in my head during the situation. It was very trivial. It was very, very trivial. However, I won't shy away from the fact that something so trivial, when delivered in the way that it was delivered, can infuriate me. I won't shy away from that at all. However, I like to think that, as Jordan Peterson would say it, the monster within me is very tamed. I'm very close friends with said monster. I'm very familiar with said monster. I've grown up with him. I've fought with him, loved with him. And I kind of like the fact that I'm at a point now where, yeah, like I feel like, yeah, he's tamed. Anyway, I digress. Yes, so it was very interesting to have that ringing through my head and to be able to practice it. And whilst I didn't practice it literally from a perspective of not allowing the situation to affect me at all, I decided to, the best way I could put it, I decided to be like Master Yoda when he fought Palpatine, I believe, in episode 3. And Palpatine uses that force lightning on him, and my man just catches it, bundles that up into a ball, and fires it straight back at him. And that's how I chose to use that energy, rather than taking what Marcus says in what I believe was book 4 of the meditations, and literally not allowing it to affect me. I decided, no, I will allow this situation to affect me. However, I will use this energy in a way that will serve me. I will channel this energy in a way that will serve me. And it served me greatly. I didn't expect to hit 11. I hit 11, and I'm grateful for that. And it also led me to ponder, like, what we actually experience in situations where our belief systems clash with somebody else's in what is a public space like the gym. And I came to what I found to be a very interesting conclusion, because I'm somebody that sits on the fence in some ways with regards directly to this situation. And the disagreement at hand was the simple, what's the term? It was a very simple disagreement based on who had authority to dictate what was done with certain plates, whether they were being used or not. I'll explain better in a minute. And it led me to realize that, well, I guess in many ways, in a gym that doesn't iron out or dictate, every rule down to a minute level and make it finite, it becomes an environment of differing and opposing ideas. And it's only natural that from time to time they clash. We see it a dime a dozen online. You see enough shorts of people's belief systems clashing in a gym. And when that hit me, I was much more relaxed about the situation. Still not happy, but I was far more relaxed, because long story short, gentleman was using a rack, I was using a bench. I was looking for some plates. There was plates on his rack. Now, I personally don't believe that I have authority over any plates on a rack that I'm using in a gym where each individual rack isn't loaded with exactly the same plates and has plates for that rack. When it's very much a free-for-all and you find yourself looking for plates constantly, I don't believe anybody has a say over any plates that they are currently not using. However, I, more often than not, do politely ask people, yo, do you mind me taking this if it's in their space? Not that I necessarily believe you have to and should, depending on the environment. I do, just out of courtesy. And in this situation, I didn't, because this gentleman hasn't asked me before and taken weights from my space. And I wasn't doing it spitefully. It was just the only place there was weights. And funnily enough, I have him on camera doing it yesterday, believe it or not. So I went to grab some plates, to the disagreement of him. I then said, well, it's a public gym, but it doesn't work like that. We've all got to look for plates. And then he goes all uppity on this white knight nonsense, going on about gym etiquette, and I just laughed and ignored him. And then he tried to reconcile, which is when I knew I had him. offering me, there's these plates here if you want them, da 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 da. At which point I just walked around him, looked around the corner, there was some 20 plates, grabbed them, moved. Anyway, right. So, blah, blah, blah. That all led me to realize that the gym is opposing beliefs. It's natural. It's always going to clash. La da di da. If your gym doesn't make finite rules for certain things, then that's how it's going to be. All right. However, it's something I've never seen discussed before. I've discussed it with friends. He doesn't believe that you should have to ask anybody to use a plate that they're not using in an environment like this. And I, in many ways, completely agree. Again, I'm somebody who more often than not asks, but I don't believe you should have to. So I'm very curious to see what anybody else watching this thinks. Very, very curious. Because I can't see why my mind would be changed personally, because it doesn't make sense to me. If each individual rack isn't loaded with a specific number of every single plate for that rack, then what right do you have to those plates if you're using that rack? Anyway, it's an interesting one. But I love situations like this one. Like, you get to learn a lot about yourself in situations like this. It's kind of like competing in martial arts. Like you put yourself in a pressure cooker to see how you respond, isn't it? And it's quite nice in the real world. It's quite nice in the real world because I hate to say it, but like, as men, the harsh reality is like, if language cannot solve the issue between two men, then violence is the last resort. And I emphasize last resort. I'm not condoning violence. I'm not encouraging it in any way, shape or form. I'm just accepting that it's a harsh reality of our existence as men. If I chose to be more defiant and just take the plate, and he was so unhappy with that he wanted to try and, I don't know, just this is all hypothetically speaking, try and physically restrict me from doing so, then there is a high possibility of violence ensuing. And like I spoke on earlier, that is a harsh reality of our existence as men. And yeah, I feel like that's very often overlooked. Very, very often overlooked. However, it's not something we should go looking for. Well, people rarely do, to be fair. But it's also very interesting to me how different girls have it and how different their experience is. Because I don't know how many times, today being one of them as well, I've seen partners of men that find themselves in situations like this think that they do the situation any favors by getting involved. It's the politest term I can think of. And they don't. They don't. But I've seen some situations in my time of people getting some because their girl can just be quiet. And yeah, man, that's the world we live in. That's the reality we must endure as men. I personally love it. I'm not gonna lie. I personally love it. Like I said, the monster within me is very tamed, but he's a vicious beast. In the best way possible, of course. In the best way possible. And like I said, I really enjoy situations like that. Opportunities that present themselves to you to practice your calm. Practice the inner workings of your mind and the balancing act between your emotions that we must play with and practice all day, every day, but we seldom are gifted the opportunity to practice it in a intense and heightened fashion, which again is one of the best things about martial arts. if you don't do martial arts, go and do some martial arts. With that said, if you made it this far, thank you very, very much. More than anything, this was just me getting some stuff off my chest. Because, yeah, it was fun, but you're always left wanting more after situations like that when you handle them well. Well, the beast within you is always left wanting more. But the wise man, the thinking man, accepts that the right path was taken. But we move. We move. It was a good session. 11 reps at 100 kilos. PR, baby. I'm proud of that. I like that. I'll take it. 15 incoming. Don't know when, because it's not really a goal, but yeah. If you made it this far again, thank you very, very much. I appreciate you allowing me to unload today's events onto you in a way that wasn't very fluid. And so for that, I thank you. And I shall see you tomorrow.